CIA files that detail the agency's ability to hack into your smartphones and smart TVs. Joining me now is Carrie Cordero, former counsel to the U.S. Assistant Attorney General for National Security. All right, Carrie, thanks for coming back and joining us here at Justice. Now, one of the things that we found out this week was that thousands of documents, as described by Julian Assange's Wikileaks, are now apparently available or visible and that we thought were private. And unfortunately, after 2010 and Chelsea Manning, I think most of us just assumed that information within the intelligence community was being protected. And then with Snowden, we just assumed everything was being tightened up after that in 2013 with the NSA. And I think that you, having particular experience in this area more than most, would understand that this kind of information being available or being, vulnerable to hacking is extremely dangerous to us and needs to be more protected. What is the status of all of this?
Well, thanks for having me on. Absolutely. This has been a continual problem. You mentioned this week's release by Wikileaks included over 8,000 documents that they purport to include information about very classified and sensitive CIA hacking abilities. And it does come on the heels of about 7 years now worth of high-profile, either unauthorized disclosures, leaks, or hacks of either sensitive or classified information that the government retains.
And why isn't the government in a position to protect this information? Now, I understand, Carrie, that if someone walks out the door with information and we can't figure out who we can, expect to, keep a confidence and who we can't. But when someone from outside the government is able to hack information inside of the government, that's a real problem.
It is. Well, each of these cases represents a different type of problem.
Right.
So if you look at the 2010 Manning case, the 2013 Snowden case, and then according to at least the most recent reports today, even in the Wall Street Journal regarding this latest CIA case, these are potentially insider threat issues.
Right.
In other words, individuals who have access and who are trusted individuals, in some cases government contractors, who then steal that information and facilitate through WikiLeaks in this case and in the 2010 case, their public exposure. Well,
Congressman Trey Gowdy actually said something like it's no more than 30 people that we have to look at in the FBI and the NSA that could be responsible for this, and we have to use whatever powers that we have legally to, confront them and get this information from them. But, Carrie, I want to quickly, before we run out of time, discuss the fact that, there was a time when, we kind of put an end to a lot of this, but then after 9/11, we kind of understood, as James Comey has made so clear, that there really isn't any privacy anymore. And so that tension between privacy and national security isn't as tense as it used to be. We've kind of recognized that we don't have privacy. But now, with the re-upping of that Section 702 of the FISA Act, is that now more in jeopardy because of what WikiLeaks has done? Are Americans now going to say, well, I don't want to re-up this now? I mean, we're in too much danger.
Well, we do have an expectation of privacy, but FISA Section 702, so that refers to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, and that's a legal authority that has been in place since 2008. It's set to expire at the end of this year. Congress is having a legislative debate over whether to reauthorize it. On one hand, multiple senior national security officials of both parties have said that it's a very productive and important legal authority. On the other hand, this issue of the security of information really is one that the government has to address.
Right.
If they're going to retain sensitive information, they have to have an ability to protect it.
Do you think we'll ever get there, Carrie?
Well, there's certainly a lot of work that can be done between the government and the private sector to improve information. Both the government and private sector have insider threat programs, but the government has to be able to assure the American public that if it's going to collect sensitive information, that it has the ability to protect it.
Okay, Carrie Cordero, thanks so much for being with us again.
Thanks.
All right. And lots of questions about whether Russia had any involvement in this presidential election. Does, though, the United States meddle in other countries' elections? Joining me now is retired CIA operations officer and chief of station, Sam Faddis. All right, Sam, you know, I kind of got sick and tired of hearing, you know, Russia is undermining our democracy and they're meddling in our elections. So I said to myself, have we ever done anything like this? And as someone who is involved in covert operations himself, Sam, have we ever meddled in other countries' elections?
Without question. It's covert action pursuant to a finding from the president. Absolutely.
All right. And I understand in my research that there are something like, I don't know, I think it was well over 100 times in the last 60 years. Does that sound about right to you?
Sounds low to me, but
sounds low to you?
I'll go with that number.
All right, let's talk about the fact that we have involved ourselves in other countries' elections without getting into people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. How would we do that?
Well, it's a form of covert action. You have to do it pursuant to authority from the President of the United States. You could do it in a million ways. You could pay people.
In this exact kind of thing, would you say that sitting opposite a Russian ambassador in, you know, in open daylight, or emails going into a building from Russia are an example of the Russian government covert operation in trying to undermine an election? Is that how it's done?
No, that's not how it's done. That's a nonsensical suggestion, and frankly, I think that's probably evidence that there isn't anything untoward going on. And you know, let's be clear: the Russians are masters at this kind of thing. They know exactly what they're doing. And no, it would be done in the dead of night, and you wouldn't see any evidence of it. It would not happen in the middle of a Senate office building in broad daylight.
So all of this, I mean, so you and other people like you in the CIA who've done these covert ops, I mean, you're sitting at home laughing at all of these claims that Russia has interfered with the election because you know how they do this.
Right. I have seen absolutely nothing of which I'm aware that suggests that there was any Russian effort that actually manipulated this election. That they stole data, that's one thing.
All right. Let me ask you, give me examples of when and how the United States, specifics, has interfered with certain elections in other countries.
All right. Well, I'm going to give you a couple of examples, and they're going to, of necessity, be kind of dated for obvious reasons.
Right.
But we staged a coup in Guatemala a number of decades ago where we overthrew the government of Guatemala. We replaced the elected government of Iran with the Shah in 1953. We have done this and literally deposed leaders and replaced them with people who would do what we wanted them to.
And as recently as a couple of years ago, there's reports that the State Department money went into Israel and the Obama administration to work against Prime Minister Netanyahu in his election.
Right. In recent years, there's been a whole bunch of State Department programs where they fund NGOs in a lot of places. Israel, as you noted, Egypt as well, with the express purpose of influencing the government, the election, who forms the government.
Interesting. But shock that we would do something like this. Sam Faddis, thank you for your service, and thanks for being on Justice with us tonight.
Thank you.
All right.